Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. Today, Bryce Simon joins me, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of things across the NBA, but obviously we're going to start with Nico Harrison being fired by the Dallas Mavericks. Then we will talk a little bit about where the Mavericks go from here. There's a report out of Sacramento that they might be looking to move some vets by the end of the year. We shall see if that works itself out. We will also talk a little bit about the Clippers being a mess, and I have promised some thoughts on Sheppard. But first, let's hit the music.
They do have a timeout. Decide not to use it. Way downtown.
Bang! Bang! What is this going to be? Wow! Are you kidding me?
Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecenie. But if you watch the tape, what you will see completely orchestrated this game. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up, Sam? How are you? If I've learned one thing over the last 9 months of covering the NBA, it's never be surprised by a firing happening late in an NBA season or too early in an NBA season. And we got that with some of the moves last year from the Grizzlies and the Nuggets. And we get it the start of this season with Nico Harrison and the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, really interesting. I'm excited to kind of talk through all of this because I am excited for Mavericks fans, first and foremost. But before we get there, we want to shout out the Game Theory Substack, gametheorysamv.substack.com. Go over there, subscribe. You will get breakdowns of a whole mess of draft prospects, is the reality. So I have done breakdowns on, goodness, Neoclis Avdalas, Darren Peterson, Caleb Wilson this week. Bryce today just did Michael Brown. I will have one coming tomorrow on Ade Mara over at Michigan. I have so many thoughts on Mara because that is a fascinating player that could end up being something really interesting or just like might not be really a guy. I'm not totally sure yet based off of the tape, the hands, the way he moves, but very smart, very big basketball player, and intelligence and size is always a really, really good combination to have. But go to gametheorysamv.substack.com. That is the place where you can get a whole mess of film breakdowns on draft prospects. And yeah, I enjoyed Bryce's today on Michael Brown. That was really good.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that one. I started watching that game and I got about 10 minutes in. I'm like, no, I'm going to start clipping. So exited out of that, went to the Synergy editor, started clipping. I think I ended up with 34 clips or something like that. Offense, defense. It was a lot of good and definitely some bad and some inconsistency. And I really enjoyed it. If I am not going to make a promise here, but we do have a big game on Thursday night between Purdue and Alabama. If I find time over the next few days, I would love to do either one on Braden Smith or maybe LeBaron Philon coming out of that game.
Yeah, that'll be good. That'll be really, really good. Okay, let's talk NBA. Let's talk Nico Harrison. So Nico Harrison has been fired by the Dallas Mavericks. We are, 12 games into their season? Look, it would be easy for me to say that, like, I feel for this guy. They haven't been healthy this year, everything like that. Look, I don't, honestly. The reality is that he made what might be the most catastrophic trade in NBA history. And the thing that we always talk about on this show is that you and I really care about the small decisions, right? Like, we talk a lot about the things that happen on the margins, the things that matter, from the 7th to 15th man on the roster, the two ways.
Yeah.
We will probably talk about Dennis Jenkins at some point on this episode.
How can I get Dennis Jenkins into today's episode? Because God knows he deserves it.
Yeah, like, we're all for that. But the reality is that the NBA is so much more centered around getting the big decisions right. In knowing exactly where the marginal inefficiencies are that could become big decisions. That's what Indiana has done incredibly well, right? They drilled the Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis deal, thinking that Halliburton was a big decision for them and could become a superstar. They drilled the Pascal Siakam trade, go get a superstar by going to move 3 first-round picks, right? But then there are just the obvious ones that you have to get right. And trading Luka Doncic without creating a trade market is not the right decision. And they ended up moving him for Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a first-round pick. That's not good enough. It's just the reality. And it's completely cratered the entire organization to the point where Kelly Flagg, Cooper's mom, literally retweeted someone saying to stop booing when the players are at the foul line, because they were just chanting "Fire Nico." It had infiltrated the fan base so strongly that it wasn't just this small contingent of online Mavericks fans or whatever you want to call it. It was the entirety of the fan base had begun to seriously begin protesting Nico Harrison's presence, to the point where he couldn't even go sit in his normal seats at the arena. So this just does not work, is the reality. It's not a tenable situation because, look, ownership is going to care about money. They're going to care about people getting into the arena. They're going to care about what the fan base wants, if they're going to buy jerseys, if they're going to do all of the things that matter to the bottom line. And once that started to go, once that confidence in anything Harrison said started to go, because he traded the guy that was supposed to take the torch from Dirk Nowitzki, the guy that has made 5 first-team All-NBA teams in his first 6 years.
And an NBA Finals, Sam. And an NBA Finals.
I think I don't think people understand how often that happens, that somebody makes 5 first-team All-NBAs in their first 6 years. It doesn't happen, is the reality. That does not happen. So once it became completely untenable for him to continue to have the job, you have to let go of him, and you can't let him do anything involved with rebuilding. And here's the real pièce de résistance, or whatever you want to call it, right? In Christian Clark over at our site, he wrote the big takeout on what happened with Nico Harrison, right? And what he wrote was that Anthony Davis, I guess, was he was trying to convince AD to come back, or AD was trying to convince them to come back, and Nico Harrison was urging him to return, but the team's medical staff was no, you can't do this because there's potential for a torn Achilles if AD returns too soon. If we're at the point where we're trying to push guys to come back potentially to save our jobs, and the downside is a torn Achilles, can't happen. We gotta move on, and we gotta move on hastily. We can't let this become a thing.
So one other thing we like to do on this podcast is talk about the process. I would like to think that we're not just results driven. We talk about, okay, what is the process of this move? So whenever it's a front office making a trade or a draft pick or whatever, we've even talked about that with Calvin Booth. Whenever we talk about Calvin Booth's miscalculations with his draft picks, we talked about the process. The idea behind those picks was not bad. It was sound. He just made bad selections with that process. The problem with Nico and the Luka trade is that was awful process. And whenever you throw process out the window, the only thing to save you, Sam, is then results, because process is out. We can't defend Nico based on process and everybody will talk about Kyrie getting hurt. Yeah, that's not Nico's fault. But when he traded Luka, he threw process out the window because he didn't use it in that decision. So everything from then on was results based. Did you win or did you not? And they weren't winning, irregardless of anything else. And quite frankly, it was part of his process. Part of his process was, I'm trading Luka because I don't think that he is going to be healthy or take care of his body or whatever. And you pinned your organization in that trade on another guy who hasn't necessarily been a clean bill of health through the most recent 4 or 5 years of his career. And I'm not like trying to throw shade at Anthony Davis at all. But I guess to your point of where I don't feel bad about for Nico, that's where I'm at. You threw process out the window. You had to know that you were going to be judged solely on results. Listen, I don't agree at all with the decision he made in two different parts. One, thinking his team could be better without Luka, and two, the way he went about rating Luka behind the scenes or whatever, and not just opening up the market for the best and highest bidder. I guess my one thing I will say is like, hey, you went out swinging. You bet on yourself and you went out swinging. It was wrong. I think most of us thought it was wrong, but at least he can live with that if that's what I would love to know what Nico, like what drove him to that decision. Like, was it a disbelief in Luka? Was it truly disbelief in defenses win championships? Was it a case of
combined? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, were you just trying to be the smartest guy in the room? Like, I know people in this space where I feel like their decisions, whether NBA draft or otherwise, are like, I want to prove that I'm smarter than everybody else. So I'm going to I'm going to go out on this limb. You know what I mean? Was it that? Was like Nico trying to show his individual brilliance that was smarter than everybody else? I would just be curious and you're probably right. It was a combination of all, but the results didn't happen. And this is where it landed him.
No, I completely agree. Like, I just don't. There was never a point where trading Luka Doncic was the call. You can't make that call. Is the reality. Luka Doncic is a historic basketball player who you had under contract for multiple years, and probably a guy that would have accepted an extension. I know he brought up the extension, but Luka's been like pretty clear afterward that he would have taken an extension. So you just like completely miscalculated that potentially too. So it was just a total miscalculation is the reality. And I don't think we need to like continue to rehash it other than to say this, like, this is also the guy that like tried to trade 2 first-round picks for Kyle Kuzma, right? Like, there were other things that he did that like did not work. You know what I mean? And there were moves that he made that did work, like the PJ Washington trade, like the Derek Lively move. Like,
Sam, the PJ Washington only happened because Kyle Kuzma invoked his
right,
quote, no trade clause that wasn't a no trade clause, but he was able to use.
And the Kyrie Irving deal worked out well. Like, there were moves that he made that were fine, but the reality is that when you make the catastrophic move to where your fan base and to where your ownership group can like truly just not trust you to be able to run the organization again, it doesn't matter. You have to get the big decisions right. Like, this is another thing that like I've said on the show before. Like, I focus way more on the big draft prospects now than I used to, because I used to spend a lot of time like trying to find the diamonds in the rough. The reality is that in the NBA, getting the big decisions right and getting like the top picks right is just so much more important than getting, the 25th guy right or the 35th guy or the 50th guy right. You might get like a good diamond in the rough, and I'm all for that. But the odds are that if you have pick number 1 and pick number 50, the pick number 1 is going to play a much bigger role in whatever decisions you have moving forward with your organization. So you can't get the big decisions wrong in that way.
Can I ask you about another decision real quick? Because I wasn't covering the NBA at large at this time. Does he get blamed for Jalen Brunson? Like, he was an executive in that. I wasn't fully engulfed to know, was Brunson always going to New York? But wasn't there a little bit of a fumble of the bag with Dallas with Brunson as well? Again, I wasn't fully into this, so maybe that one is unfair, but I was just curious.
Yeah, I mean, look, that was a complicated one. Like, people will say that they could have offered him like a 4-year, 52, 55, whatever it was, in order to keep him, right? But like, from what I understand, Like, I think that Dallas did like offer him like a 4-year deal. And I think that he said no. Like, I think that it could have been like a bit more, you know, maybe he would have done it at certain points. Maybe they could have continued to do it. And, he might have told them no. Like, there were different things that were said about it. It's honestly hard for me to say.
It's not
like,
I know that just like he let Jalen Brunson walk. It's not just cut and dry in that way.
Like, I know that Rick Brunson has said in the past that, like, okay, they offered it to him in the fall. He turned it down. Then, like, in January, he would have considered doing it. Then, like, look, I don't know. The deal didn't get done. It's the reality. Who's to blame there? I don't know. It felt like he did want to go to New York on some level too. So, like, it's hard for me to say. And I think he probably wanted to play on his own team for a while as opposed to being behind Luka. Like, there's just a lot of pieces there. And that's one where, like, I don't totally blame Nico in the way that is reason, in the way that, like, some people would consider, I guess. But regardless, here's where the fun comes in. They are 3-9. They're bad. Like, that's the reality. This team is one of the worst offensive teams I've seen in a while. They are, they look better with Brandon Williams starting. I'll say that. I don't know if you've watched them recently, but like when Brandon Williams has been in the lineup, they've actually been pretty fun.
Sam, I only had to watch one game whenever they played the Pistons and watch Brandon Williams minutes. I don't usually try to sound this arrogant, but it's like, to me, it was very apparent that they looked better offensively, at least whenever Brandon Williams was on the court. So,
yes. So, like, Brandon Williams is a big help for them. They have like I think when he and Cooper are on the court, they have like a 112 offensive rating. Like, it's something like that, which is like still below league average, but not catastrophic.
Their team offensive rating for listeners is 104.6 at time of recording. Like, just overall. So that's substantial.
Like, their early season when they were playing Cooper at point guard without a guard on the court, the offensive rating was like 96. It was hysterical. They were so predictable in everything that they did because they were just running actions all the time. Nobody got easy shots. Nobody was like playing jazz to get, spontaneity or spontaneous offense going. Like, it was so bad. It was one of the worst things I've seen in a while, like that a team has done. But we're at least in a place now where Brandon Williams is in the lineup and things look a little bit more competent. For what it's worth, when Cooper and Brandon Williams are out there together, Cooper Flag, I think, is averaging like 22 points per 75 possessions, according to Data Baller. He has like a 62 true shooting percentage. Like, he looks like the guy that we thought we were getting this year. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, Cooper is not number one in the rookie rankings. He is, like, I will say that I have coming on Friday, so today. But he's had a better season than what I think people think because of how bad it was to start. They need to completely rebuild this situation, right? Like, that's where we're at. They have to trade all the vets that they can and set this team up for success in a way that actually makes sense.
Yes. I mean, and the thing is, through all of the negative, the positive is they own their pick this year, right? So, like, that's a major plus and a major driving force of going down the path we're about to go down. I kind of went through the roster. I was like, okay, who would I want to keep on this roster? Because, as you know, Sam, I've lived through a rebuild, and I feel like I've learned a couple things from that in terms of you can't just trade away all of the good players, all of the floor spacing, all of the primary initiators, or else you learn nothing about their players and they don't develop the way you want them to develop. So there's a few players I'd be like, no, I like Brandon Williams. I would keep Brandon Williams for all the things we just said.
I agree.
Think Derek Lively. Also, obviously, you're going to keep Derek Lively. But there's some players that's like, okay, let's turn loose. Let's lose games this year while trying to develop Cooper Flag, at least on the offensive end. Let's go draft somebody to pair with him, and then we'll figure it out from there. Like, that is the thing, is you have Cooper Flag. You're already ahead of the game compared to a lot of rebuilds that have happened over the last 5, 10, how many ever years in the NBA. You could flip this thing relatively quickly, especially if you're going to have to give up AD for less than you got him for. I think we all know substantially less than what you got him for, and then figuring out Kyrie and a couple other things.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Look, the guys I'd be looking to move, I would be looking to move AD. I'd be looking to move Daniel Gafford. I would be looking to move Kyrie if I can, like with the health stuff. We'll see if that is like possibly in the cards, even, to be honest. I would probably move Najee Marshall, and I would probably try to move Klay Thompson. Like I would be trying to move everybody.
Klay was an interesting one for me, and I'll push back just a little bit. I realize he's shooting like dreadful right now, Sam. Like I get it.
Yeah.
But to me, Klay was the one guy that I think I would probably disagree with compared to others. I would keep him on the roster at least throughout the rest of this season, just because if nothing else, Klay has gravity. Like even shooting 30% from three right now, I think he has gravity. And unless I had a very solid plan for floor spacing and gravity from other guys, I see value in Klay Thompson on this team for now, because I don't know what you're trading Klay for is the other thing based on how he's playing right now. So for me, Klay was the one name that I'm like, I might hang on to for the rest of this season and then maybe try to flip him in the offseason or next year at the deadline, understanding that like he's way overpaid right now and he's not, I understand like he's pretty much cooked. I don't think he's going to end up at 29% from three on the season. And again, I think he provides floor spacing that Cooper Flagg needs to operate, and Derek Lively when he gets on the court, etc.
Yeah. The big guy here though is AD.
Yes.
Like I think they have to formulate an AD deal that makes sense for everybody. Have you considered any like options here for what an Anthony Davis trade could look like?
So I'll just start with this. Like my thought is, I'll see if you think I'm crazy for what I think they should be expecting. So salary matching that I would want to be expiring, because I'd want to start to open up my books as quick as possible. Maybe one interesting young player, not like maybe a high level prospect, but somebody that I could see building for the future with Cooper, whether it's, a floor spacer or another big to pair with Lively if I'm going to move Gafford or something. And then at least one pick, maybe two. Like, is two stretching it? If I'm going to get an actual young piece, maybe it all kind of depends on the level of the money that team is getting off of and stuff like that. Is that the realm of where, do you think I'm correct in my realm of what I think Anthony Davis could potentially get?
To me, if you're getting a young player, I think probably only one pick.
That's what, okay. And so I think that's where I'm at. I guess I could be talked into just all expiring money and two picks. And so what I went to initially, so the very first thing I did was the Brooklyn Nets strategy. And I went and looked who has their picks after this year. So does Charlotte make sense? Does OKC make sense? Does Houston make sense? Do the Spurs make sense? Obviously, their picks and their pick swaps are spread out amongst those teams. I think those are all correct. Are there any of those teams where that could be a starting point? Can I go to Charlotte? Would they have interest in Anthony Davis? And we start by getting back our 2027 pick, I believe is what it is.
So the team that, of that group that is interesting to me is Charlotte on some level, because they need a big, like, all due respect to Brian Kalkbrenner, I think that they could probably use a big, right? I wonder if Charlotte could sell itself on essentially, doing an Anthony Davis deal and having a core of LaMelo Ball, Con Kniffel, Brandon Miller, Anthony Davis, with whatever young guys you can keep, Sion James, Ryan Kalkbrenner, Diabate, etc. Right?
Yeah.
The deal here, and I'll flash this up on the screen while we're talking. So the deal that I was able to kind of come up with, and I'll make sure that this is the right tab, was, could you do, let's see if I can
shout out Spotrac.
Shout out Spotrac. Is there a world where they would be willing to do, oh goodness, that background is train wreck. Okay. Anthony Davis for Miles Bridges, who has 1 year left on his deal, Colin Sexton, who's expiring, Pat Connaughton, who's expiring, and they get their 2027 first round pick back. Is that enough? Or would you need like one other thing?
I think I would need one other thing, even though I really like Colin Sexton, not knowing what it would take to keep him. Maybe he is a guy that you could keep if I knew, like, this is where, so I'll just get this out. I think some of these decisions are going to be made in conjunction with what else you can do. Like, can you move Kyrie? Because if I can move Kyrie, then I think Colin Sexton becomes a pretty valuable piece to my team in the same way we've talked about Brandon Williams. I think that's a nice, younger, not super old, he's 27, guard that can, we're not trying to compete for a championship over the next couple of years. He can run my team. So maybe I even decide to keep him. But my initial thought there was I would want somebody that excited me a little bit more as a true younger player that's long-term with Cooper, or maybe another pick along with getting my 2027 back.
There's no way you're getting Con in this deal.
No, that's
like 0% chance I'm doing
zero.
That.
Yeah. Like, can I get Liam maybe?
Could you get Sion James?
Yeah, like if you threw in one of those guys, I'd feel a little better about it. Like Liam, like both of those guys in this last draft. Sion's been really good. Liam's played, sparingly here and there. Obviously, him and Cooper were teammates at Montverde. That's the archetype of player I would want to put around Cooper in terms of the floor spacer and all of that. I'm not saying he's overly exciting, but if I could add Liam or Sion to that group, I kind of think that that's the best Dallas can expect. You're getting, and again, if you don't want to keep Sexton, then that's expiring. Connaughton's expiring. Bridges is going to be on the last year of his deal. Listen, I don't want to get in. We never get into that, but he's making shots right now. It is what it is. So,
and like could be somebody you forward along somewhere else.
Yeah. Like that's a guy. Yeah. I mean, listen, he's averaged 20 a game for the last 4 seasons. He is this year, and probably a guy in the off season. He helps you stay competitive in games. So you're playing competitive minutes to let these guys grow and develop. And then you either trade that in the off season or you keep him into next season and flip him at the deadline when he's on, a 3-month rental or whatever, but sure.
Yeah. So the deal construction I did here is Anthony Davis and Dwight Powell for Miles Bridges, Colin Sexton, Pat Connaughton, Sion James, and Dallas's own first round pick back.
Yeah. I also want to preface this, Sam, by because I can hear people screaming, why would Charlotte do, you just have to be a team. All of these are predicated on a team thinking they're ready to make a run and thinking that Anthony Davis is going to be healthy, like betting on Anthony Davis's health, which I don't think either of us would. I shouldn't put words in your mouth. I wouldn't do. That's why all of these are very hard for me to really want to execute, but it's all predicated on what Anthony Davis can be as a defender on an offensive end, and that you're going to get some version of a healthy. I mean, he did play 76 games just a couple years ago. So,
and you need to have some sort of desperation.
Yeah,
well,
sure. Yeah.
I don't know that the Hornets have the desperation. If I'm the Hornets, I want to be clear. I don't do this.
Yeah.
If I'm the Hornets,
I would not either.
To be honest with you, I would not do this. But that's the team that most caught my eye there.
Yeah,
I group that you said.
That's a good word, desperation. Because a couple of the other teams I've thought of as well, one in particular that I don't think it's a good idea, but I could see them being desperate. That's why I thought of them. And I don't think Charlotte should be in desperate after the draft they just had, how Con looks right now, Sion, Ryan, all of those. I don't know why I'm only using first names on this episode. But I don't think they should be in desperation to make a move like this.
The two teams that I immediately thought of when we were doing this exercise. One was the LA Clippers, because we're going to talk about the Clippers here.
That was the team I was just referencing, Sam, in terms of being desperate.
And they're just kind of a mess right now. So my idea was John Collins, Bogdan Bogdanovic, both of whom are essentially expiring. Bogdan has a team option for next year. Brooke Lopez, who has 1 year left, and then Nick Batum, who has 1 year left. 2 first-round picks for Anthony Davis and Dwight Powell.
Wait, what? Say the picks again?
29 and 31 first round picks.
Oh, okay. They do have those to trade. Also, I think Lopez and Batum are also team options, Sam.
Okay, great. I'm all for it. That sounds great. But a bunch of expiring money.
Yeah.
Kind of lets you reset the books if you're Dallas a little bit. John Collins is like a totally fine player. All these other guys, Bogdanovich, Lopez, and Batum, not necessarily all that valuable, but that's why they have to do 2 firsts if they're going to do it. Right. Yeah. It's not like they have young guys that are particularly exciting. Right. I think that the Mavericks can probably do better than this, to be honest with you, would be my read on it. But I think the Clippers are desperate enough potentially to where an AD deal could be something they would try to do.
I think this would be my path if I knew I could get off the Kyrie money. And not that this is bad money, but like one of Gafford or Wash, to me, this is the let's reset, not necessarily through the draft in the immediate, but with Cooper, the 2026 pick, and then we're going to have cap space in either 2026 or 27. And we know we can clean the books to have max cap space or the trade or what, right? Like you think, because I don't know that 29 and 31 are exciting to me to pair with Cooper Flag because he's going to be so far into he'll still be very young, but you know what I mean? But it's, hey, we can use those picks and our cap space to go acquire the player that's going to go along with Cooper and Darren Peterson or AJ or whoever. Yeah. And so if I'm going to accept that deal from the Clippers, it's as part of a bigger picture of we're going all in on the cap space, knowing we're getting off Kyrie and we're going to get off of either Daniel or either Gafford or PJ Washington's money and really clean up our books. So we have all of this cap space to navigate, the rest of the roster.
Yeah. In cap space, like given the Mavericks pick situation, I think actually will be incredibly important for them. If only because like given their pick situation, they might not have like draft capital to go out and improve this roster, but they are in Texas where there is no state income tax. They are in a big market. They could probably use cap space to be able to go out and get real players if they wanted to. So
and Cooper, to me, if Cooper's what we thought, what do we think he is? That will be exciting to players to go play with as well.
Exactly right. The third one is the one that makes the most sense to me. Chicago is the team here, and I don't know if Chicago fans are going to be like wildly enthused about this, but like Chicago is the team that makes the most sense to me, if only because you can do it without like really breaking up what has made them fun so far this year. And look, I know that they've lost 4 straight games and, we'll see how good they actually truly are on some level, right? As we go through the rest of the season. But an Anthony Davis for Nikola Vucevic, Kevin Huerter, Kobe White, and a first round pick deal is all expiring money that allows the Mavericks to completely reset their books on some level, not completely, but like to start the road of resetting their books. It gives them the shot on Kobe White, who's an unrestricted free agent who could leave or could stay in Dallas and potentially be a part of the solution long term. And they get a first round pick for it. Right. And if you're the Bulls, what you're looking at then is you're looking at a situation where it's Anthony Davis, Josh Giddey, like all those guys like Modest Bazelis, Noah Essengay, Trey Jones, Isaac Okoro, Pat Williams, etc. The guys that have been fairly fun this year. Obviously, Ayo Dosunmu, who you could include in this deal, by the way, is one of the expirings if you wanted to. I do think I would want to target Kobe if I was Dallas. Like, I think that seeing what Kobe White looks like on an expiring deal is somewhat interesting to me. But basically, the idea of Bulls expirings for Anthony Davis is the thing that kind of just tracks the best for me, if only because the Bulls don't have an interior answer right now after Nikola Vucevic retires or leaves or whatever he does. And on top of it, Anthony Davis is from Chicago. I'm sure that like there would be some happiness there about returning home. There are just a lot of like things that you could tick that I think track to make sense for this, kind of for everyone across the board, but it would require Chicago to be interested in Anthony Davis.
So for me, if I'm Dallas, that one's interesting depending on how I feel about Kobe White. I like it a lot more if I think I'm going to be in on Kobe White and can, not that he's going to be the final piece to go with Cooper Flag or the piece to go with Cooper Flag, but I'm going to keep him around. If not, I would rather trade for Io and then keep Io, the Sumu around. And the other thing I liked about that, I believe you had a 2027 first when Dallas would most likely, it is top 2 protected, but is most likely going to convey that to Charlotte in 2027. So even then, you'll have your 2026, you would have a 2027, you have a 2028 because it's a pick swap, and then 2029, even though you relinquish yours, you get the Lakers. So my whole point is at least you look every year and you're making a pick in the first round or have a pick to trade, as bringing in that 2027 balances what you're most likely going to give up to the Hornets.
I think that's right. Like that's the kind of thing that just makes sense for me, for everybody kind of involved to go down the road of. Now, again, Chicago might have different ideas. They might want to slow build this thing out a little bit more interestingly. Maybe they feel like they can get in the mix for free agents this summer instead, and they have their eyes set on like a different free agent than Anthony Davis, right? Totally understand that, and would make sense for why Chicago wouldn't do it. I'm not going to sit here and argue and say that like I think this is some great idea for Chicago, but Chicago needs to figure out its direction beyond their identity and play style, which I think is great. Like I enjoy their offensive structure and identity that they have built with Josh Giddey. I wonder if this is the kind of deal that could track for them, though, to maybe take the next step in an Eastern Conference that we have questions about.
I want to throw out 2 teams at you and see if either of them like tick anything, one from each conference. Toronto, who's a team we've talked about, maybe going for a bigger fish. And then the Phoenix Suns and the idea of pairing Devin Booker with Anthony Davis. Or Anthony Davis with Devin Booker, I guess.
So Toronto, you would do what? Like
I struggled. I was trying to do it, and I was having trouble making the math.
It'd almost have to be like Pirtle and Barrett. But if I'm Dallas, I don't want Pirtle because he signed long term now, like for a good amount of time, and I have a center in Derek Lively that I presumably like. So Pirtle doesn't really work. I don't want the Quickly deal.
I think you have to reroute, get a third team involved if this is the route they go. But they have a lot of young, interesting players that would be, that you could fit in and picks.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And then who was the second team?
The Suns. Like, do they make a move?
I tried this. They just don't have the assets that match what Dallas would want, I would think.
Gotcha.
Just like they don't have expirings and they don't really have picks. Malawach is their young player that they have that overlaps with Lively. Like that's just one that doesn't totally track for me.
Sure.
The other team that I've heard, people bring up speculatively, not in terms of rumors, is, again, like the team that we talk about often on this show because of the show that you run, is Detroit, right? Like, could Detroit try and make this their all-in move? But to me, they actually lose too much by doing this and making the money work. Like, I don't think that they take the big enough leap to make this the move, because they would have to move like Tobias Harris and Isaiah Stewart or Duncan Robinson to make the money work. And okay, if you move Duncan, like Duncan's not all that exciting. I get that to people, but Duncan is like a huge part of their spacing, right? Huge. And then Isaiah Stewart's a huge part of their defense. And like I would imagine you'd want to keep Beef Sue if like you can try and make this great defense with AD. So I struggled with that one a little bit more in terms of like lining up everything, because you have to move Tobias in that deal. And Tobias, like, people can say whatever they want about Tobias Harris, but like he does actually genuinely help that team quite a bit. And yes, Anthony Davis is an upgrade on Tobias Harris, but he gets guarded. It is kind of the thing. And like, who are you slotting into that role? Are you playing AD at the 4 with Jalen Duren? Well, your spacing gets tanked that way with Cade Cunningham out there. So I'm not as enthused about this as some people seem to be.
3 of your 4 best players are Asar Thompson, Anthony Davis, and Jalen Duren. We talk enough about can Jalen Duren and Asar Thompson, just the 2 of them, make it work. Throwing in another non-floor spacer just does not make any sense to me whatsoever. Yeah. So this has not been one. I enjoy that the Pistons get thrown into these conversations now because they're actually good. This is not one that I have entertained very much.
Yeah, I think I kind of agree with you. Kyrie, I don't really know that I need to like get into like specific Kyrie deals that make sense. I don't know that I want to like dig into like anybody else's deals that make sense, other than to say like if they could move these guys, like I would try to move them. PJ Washington can't be moved this year because he signed the late extension, so that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, basically anybody on that roster that can be moved, I'd be somewhat interested in moving.
I'm with it. Rebuild, Cooper, make your other choices, and then move forward from there.
That is exactly right. Okay. Shout out to the folks over at MIZZEN and Maine. Let's be honest. Most dress clothes are uncomfortable. They're high maintenance and they just don't feel good to wear. You spend too much time ironing, dry cleaning, and tugging at stiff fabrics. But that is why MIZZEN and Maine is just the best. MIZZEN and Maine is a company that I have been shopping from for years, even before they were a podcast sponsor. MIZZEN and Maine makes classic menswear with performance fabrics, so it's effortless to look sharp and feel great. Their shirts and pants look refined, but they're stretchy, lightweight, moisture wicking, wrinkle resistant, and completely machine washable, so you don't have to take them out to get dry cleaned. And when you put their clothes on, you're going to feel the difference instantly. Professional style that's actually comfortable, whether you're in the office, on the road, or even out on the golf course. It's timeless style you can invest in once and enjoy for years. That's why thousands of guys swear by MIZZEN and Maine when they want to look great without the hassle. Right now, MIZZEN and Maine is offering our listeners 20% off your first purchase at mizzenandmaine.com. And that promo code is going to be GAME20. That's MIZZEN, spelled MIZZEN, and Maine, MAIN.com. Promo code GAME20 for 20% off. MIZZENandmaine.com, promo code GAME20. And if you'd rather shop in person, you can find MIZZEN and Maine stores in select states. Also, shout out to our sponsor today, MOMENTOUS. Look, creatine isn't just for building muscle. It's become a daily essential for strength, focus, recovery, aging, and cognitive performance. I talk about the fact that I have ADHD all the time on this show. And creatine is definitely a help for me to improve my focus. I do notice the difference whenever I take like a small scoop of creatine in the morning and kind of get that little edge of focus that is necessary. But now Momentous is making it easier. They're making your daily creatine routine even better with new creatine chews. These are bite-sized lemon lime chews that make consistency effortless. You just chew and go. Each chew delivers exactly 1 gram of CreaPure creatine monohydrate, the gold standard for creatine in the space. It's trusted by Olympic athletes, so you know that it's independently tested for purity, safety, and label accuracy. Momentous spent years testing until they created the first chewable that actually meets the Momentous standard, which is uncompromising science, meticulous sourcing, and real transparency. There's no artificial sweeteners or fillers. It's just science-backed, it's clinically proven, and it is in a portable, craveable format. Right now, Momentous is offering our listeners 35% off your first order with promo code GAME. That's Live Momentous, LIVEMOMENTOUS.com, and use the promo code GAME for up to 35% off your first order. That's livemomentous.com, promo code GAME. Okay, so I don't know if you saw this report come out of Sacramento by Carmichael Dave, who is a radio host over there. He said recently that the Kings are going to look into rebuilding, essentially. That they are going to look into getting rid of some of their vets and kind of move into, you know, a potential spot to rebuild. Now, I think that like this isn't like massive surprise to me, right? Like none of this really should stun anyone, I think, because it's a new front office, right? Scott Perry is there, and this team is not, playing overly well. Let's be honest. I don't know if you watched some of their games recently, but it's not ideal. I don't know if you saw that Doug Christie had a wild rant recently where he talked about the King Show's going to be coming here. King Show's coming. And if you're talking about us now and you're frustrated with us now, stay on that side because the King Show's coming. They were 3-7 at the time. They had Atlanta and Denver coming up. Denver beat them by 14, and then Atlanta beat them by 33. So, not great. Maybe not the best timing from Doug, right?
Real quick, speaking of rants, Billy Donovan's after their loss on Wednesday night to the Motor City Cruise Pistons was actually really, really good. I really appreciated it. Just a quick side note, I thought his message was one that not only applied to NBA players, but college, high school, down the line. I thought it was a really good message from Billy Donovan. Very different from this message, apparently, from Doug Christie.
Yeah. So here's kind of my thing. How valuable are these guys? Like how valuable are Domantas Sabonis, Zach LaVine? We kind of know Zach LaVine because his market was bad for the last 2 years in Chicago. His deal's coming up, which is good. Like that will help the value a little bit. Dennis Schroeder, who has been like incredibly bad to start the year, just like really, really bad. Malik Monk, who this summer, like you and I like Malik Monk, but
the rest of the NBA doesn't.
Apparently the rest of the league just does not think Malik Monk is very good. DeMar DeRozan, who, just kind of is who he is, right? And, I don't know, I don't know what they're doing with Keon Ellis and why Keon Ellis won't play more, but Keon Ellis, I want to shout out, I will say this too. I've really enjoyed the Russell Westbrook experience for them so far this year. I get it. It's not like the first thing that people want to talk about and bring up is Russ or whatever, but this dude is 37 years old. He's still one of the best athletes in the NBA, and that dude still brings it every single night in a way that some of their guys just frankly don't bring it in terms of the energy every single night. So truly, I do want to shout out Russ here because I've enjoyed the Russ experience in Sacramento when I've watched them.
So I agree on a personal level for Russ that it's impressive. I respect it, all of that.
Russ is 37 years old. He's averaging 15, 6, and 6 right now.
Yeah, he's also played the fourth most minutes on a team that should not be playing Russell Westbrook, the fourth most minutes on the team. And has...
You know what, though, Bryce? I get why you say that. I do. But he's kind of earned the minutes, is the reality.
Yeah, but not at the expense. Okay, then bench somebody else or trade somebody else so Keon Ellis and Nick Clifford and Devin Carter and these other guys can play. That is my issue with the Russ experience in Sacramento. It has literally nothing to do with Russell Westbrook, who I respect and is an all-time great in the triple doubles and all of that, and probably will never get the credit he deserves. I don't love watching a game and it being revolved around Russ and watching Keon Ellis not even get to step on the floor. That's not Russ's fault. That's other people's fault. But
yeah,
that's my issue in general.
Yeah, to me, you can make the case that Scott Perry shouldn't have signed Russell Westbrook. You should have taken the club out of the bag on some level, right? You can't hit the club if you don't have it in the bag, right? But once Russ is there, if he's earning it with his playing time this early in the season, I don't know, man. I don't have a problem with Doug Christie just going, yeah, he's so I think play him over Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder shouldn't be playing 30 minutes a night. And if you want to put Russ in there instead of him, I'm for that. And I'm for different roster decisions involving the vets in finding different ways to get the kids to play, especially Keon Ellis, who is good. But once Russ is there, if he earns it, like I think he should just be playing is the reality, because that's like how you create organizational standards to me is if a guy earns it, he plays. That's the reality. Like if we are here and we're creating some sort of culture and we talk about the fact that like, honestly, sometimes Russ can have a good effect on the culture. That's the area where he can have a good effect on the culture. Just play hard. You know that every single night that dude's going to bring it on defense. He might not be good at defense because he's going to over pursue and he's going to do all sorts of different things that sometimes hurt you. But you know he's going to bring it. You know he's going to bring the intensity and the energy. And like that's what that team kind of needs right now. They're 3-9, and like I'm good with the energy, I guess, on some level.
If Keon Ellison was playing 25 minutes a night, I'd have no issue. I just hate looking at box scores. Like this is ultimately what it comes down to. And this has been my soapbox about the Kings for 18 months now. And so again, this is nothing against Russ. I enjoy the energy. I agree with the idea of, culture and playing hard and, earning the right to play. But if I'm Keon Ellis, I'm saying, how did he comes in here? He's earned the right to play. Why have I not earned the right to play? Why do I still get less than 20 minutes a night? That's ultimately all roads lead back to, because looking at it now, like Clifford's over 20 minutes a night. Like that's probably fine. Devin Carter hasn't been able to make a shot. Like to me, all roads for me lean back to the Keon Ellis thing. And I just can't get past it.
It's bizarre that, they might end up losing this guy for free because they ended up exercising his team option in the summer. You know what I mean? When they could have declined it, made him a restricted free agent and signed him to like a bit of a longer term deal that would have been a great trade asset. And instead, like now, if I'm Keon Ellis and I'm playing 18 minutes a night, why would I stay there? Yeah. If I'm an unrestricted free agent, this is different than Keegan Murray, where it's okay, he's a restricted free agent. Let's just like take the money and be happy. If you're Keon Ellis, where Keon Ellis has, unrestricted free agency forthcoming, and he gets to pick where he goes, I don't know, man. Like I'm not wildly enthused about the situation that I'm in. If I'm him, given the playing time that is just, it fluctuates. Like I don't want to sit here and say Keon Ellis doesn't play, but it fluctuates.
Yeah, he's shooting 47% from three. Yeah, I mean, so here's a great example to your point. A 6-game sample, Sam. He plays 25 minutes in a 6-point loss, 17 minutes in a 5-point win, 12 minutes in a 30-point loss to the Thunder, 12 minutes in a almost 30-point loss to the Wolves, 14 minutes in a loss to the Nuggets, and then plays 30 minutes in a 33-point loss to the Hawks. Like, I'm sure there's some other guys in and out of the lineups there that maybe add some nuance. I hadn't even thought about the Keegan Murray aspect of it. I realize they don't play the same position, but your other good defender on the roster isn't playing right now, and you won't play Keon Ellis even with him. What's going to happen when Keegan comes back? Where do the minutes go for him? So that's enough Keon Ellis on me. People know my stance on it.
Yeah. So look, they're going to try and move the vets. It feels like. Do you think they will be successful in moving the vets? It's kind of my thing. Like they struggled to move Malik Monk this year. Malik Monk right now, by the way, is shooting 51, 48, 88 and averaging 14 points a game. Like Malik Monk is a good offensive player who could help a lot of teams. And they couldn't move him this summer for value.
And this is why this roster doesn't work. Every player we're about to talk about has some little thing that is attached to them that I think narrows their market. Levine's is the dollar amount. Sabonis is, and really DeRozan as well for different reasons, but our play, like you can't just insert Sabonis into any offensive scheme with any offensive roster with what he does best. And DeRozan is a little bit of the same. You're going to take out, like naturally there's already teams that aren't going to be interested. Like why would the Thunder be interested in any of this, right? And there's going to be teams that don't have the cap space and don't have like you're already narrowed. And then you narrow the market even more for each one of them for different reasons because of their play styles. And so my immediate thought is, I don't know that Kings fans should get excited about this in terms of what the return is going to be if they moved all of these 3 players, because I don't think it's going to be super, super exciting in regards to what comes back to Sacramento.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't know what to like even come up with for them. The Sabonis market is really interesting because obviously like an incredibly talented player.
Mhm.
Obviously a player who is remarkably productive. He can really pass it, obviously, can be a hub out front for your offense. Like, obviously people are melting down about Derek Queen right now, not for incorrect reasons. Derek has been really fun so far. Sabonis is like so much of what Queen does. They go about it differently. Queen has the more aesthetically pleasing game because of his ability to like play with slow steps and decel, whereas Sabonis is like a wrecking ball in a china shop kind of vibe where he's just kind of powering around using his shoulders all the time and trying to finish at the rim with little flip shots and the mid post with little floaters and things like that. But like I like your take here that he's not like a wildly easy guy to fit into any scheme necessarily.
Yeah,
And
because he's not
I just
shooting
don't
it.
know what the market is for him. Yeah. That's not to say there's a bad market. It's to
Correct.
say, I don't know what the market is for him.
I think there's a world, like the best case scenario is you find the team that can take on DeRozan's money. And I believe that has a small, what's the guarantee on that? Is he essentially expiring? What is the level of guarantee? It's not showing up, not showing me on Spot Track right now.
DeRozan's money?
Yeah, I thought next year's not fully guaranteed, right?
It is not fully guaranteed. I know that. Give me a second here. And
I just don't know what the actual amount is of that.
Yeah.
There's the Terry Rozier not fully guaranteed, and there's the Duncan Robinson not fully guaranteed.
It's 10 million guaranteed.
Okay, so I thought it split the difference a little bit. So, you'd have some dead money, but I guess a team could look at it potentially as an expiring deal if they really wanted to. But anyway, so like, do you find a team that leans enough into the mid range and is going to be okay with it? They have the rest of the spacing around it that's going to work. Who's the team that is going to be able to take the bonus and put them into their roster with his defensive limitations, but has the rest of the roster where, hey, take the ball and we'll cut and move in DHO off of you. And our primary initiator right now is going to be okay with that. Or my thing with LaVine is, I think he's a very talented basketball player. He's scoring 24 a game. You're talking about shooting percentages, Sam. 52, 42, 87 right now. I think
Zach LaVine is so good at basketball as an offensive player. The defense, I totally get it. It's frustrating and it is what it is. When he's locked in, like he's had moments where he's okay on defense, but like he's not really locked in right now in Sacramento. It is like, I'm not going to sit here and make that case and, belittle Kings fans. But offensively, that dude is insanely talented. And I think that if he got in the right spot, he'd be helpful.
No, and that's my thing but you got to thread the needle with the team that not only could use him, sees the value in that, but also has the ability to match salary and take on that salary and fit it into their roster. And I just think all three of those players present situations where the market's going to be very narrow because each player has to fit these specific criteria. And there's not going to be a whole lot of teams around the league that are going to be able to make those, to hit those criteria.
Okay. So I'm trying to think of a spot for Sabonis, right? And I wouldn't do that. I want to be very upfront when I say this. I would not do this. Okay. If I was this team, I would not make this deal. And I don't know if the Kings are going to be wildly excited about making a deal with this team either. Right. So I say all of that before I preface this. Is there any way that you think that putting Sabonis on the Lakers would work? And the only reason I say it is because I think JJ Redick would be creative enough with some of his actions and schemes. And I think that while Luka does tend to like the rim runner, which is something that Sabonis really isn't, Sabonis is very good in DHOs and ball screens and things like that. And I do wonder if you like did a core of Luka, LeBron, Sabonis, and Reeves, if that could actually be like a team that contends-ish. Because the money can work if you do Sabonis, McDermott, and Eubanks at the deadline for Rui, Vanderbilt, Kleba, and Ayton.
My gut reaction is I don't love it because I don't think he's the style of center I think of whenever I want to build out this Lakers team. I'd have to set on that one a little bit.
I think they'd have to add picks. I'm not saying that it would be only those guys from the Lakers, right? They'd have to add a pick or something. But I'm just scheme-wise, because Sabonis is so specific in terms of scheme. I actually wonder if the Lakers crack in terms of scheme. And again, I wouldn't do this because I don't think they could get to a level defensively that would allow them to win a title, is the reality. But the offensive scheme is actually somewhat intriguing to me.
Here's what I would say. I think Luka and Reeves would love Sabonis in terms of he's going to set hellacious screens and create opportunities for them. And then anytime a team wants to put two on the ball, I think he can operate out of that fairly well. I know he hasn't shot well 3 to 10 feet this season, but I think he has a little bit of an ability to knock down that shot, or more so draw the defense in and then spray out to shooters, cutters, whatever the passing read. I think that's the way in the scenario where his passing comes into play, is not necessarily operating through him, but more so when teams want to double those stars on that team, Sabonis can make them pay by making the decisions out of it.
Yeah. And look, Golden State's the other team that scheme wise, this would really work on.
Yep.
They just have to do 4-for-1 deals, Kuminga, Moody, Horford, Melton can make the money work, but that's hard. Doing those 4-for-1 deals in season, you then have to figure out how you go about trading guys and getting other guys in and signing guys from the G League and things like that. You convert Tui, I guess, but I don't know. That doesn't.
Team. What about?
Yeah,
this team is not good this year. What about Memphis? Does he make any sense in Memphis next to Jaren, a floor spacing forward? True.
And I think they're super connected to Edey. They want Edey to be the guy. I mean, Toronto is another team. They just get these guys who are hubs, on ball hubs regularly, right? I don't think that works though. Another team I was kind of wondering about was, what if you put him next to Sarr in Washington?
Okay.
That's actually kind of interesting to me. Go get a real physical dude to play next to Sarr. Sarr has been where we like Sarr on defense is actually in his ability to weak side help and rotate across plays.
So this was kind of my Memphis idea, and so you squashed it with the Edey thing, but it's the general idea of pairing him next to a player like that.
And they have the expiring money to do it, because they could do Middleton and honestly, they could do Middleton and McCollum for Sabonis and Malik Monk, and the Kings get all the expiring money back, and maybe the Wizards forward along Malik Monk to a third team or something, and maybe try and get a pick back. But if they wanted Sabonis, it'd be very easy for them to get Sabonis, I think, because they have the expiring money to do it.
Sure. That's I don't know what the long-term play is there, but getting that guy next to, especially if you're not giving up a ton to make it happen. And
so can I make a case for the long-term play?
Sure.
And I don't even know that I agree with this. I want to be very transparent about that. I don't love Sarr as a primary defender in ball screens. I think he gets lost in no man's land a little bit too often. This happens with Sabonis a decent amount too. But if you move Sarr to the 4 and you play the two big structure, it's a big bet on Sarr shooting, which we'll see where it is. I don't really buy him yet as a 35% 3-point shooter over the course of the full year. We talked about that when I said I was a big dumb idiot for not ranking him in the top 10 of the redraft that I did this summer. I remain a big dumb idiot for that. Apologies to Wizards fans. But I think he could shoot at a high level at some point. I think the shot's a little too inconsistent right now in terms of trajectory and the way it comes out of his hand. But he has enough touch to maybe get there at some point, I think, right?
Yeah. No, It was always the
You have
idea.
spacing 4 and Star who can like play make with the ball in his hands. You have Sabonis who can play make with the ball in his hands in a real way. The rebounding stuff that, I think Washington like really could use somebody who rebounds the ball. They're 29th in defensive rebounding rate this year, which, not a surprise given what they have. I also think Sabonis is actually a screen setter. We talk all the time about how we think Sar is not a great screen setter. Yeah. If you look at his screen assist number, like he has like a bunch of screen assists this year. He might be leading the league. But the problem is that it's just they use him all the time in screen actions is why. And a lot of that stuff ends up being like little tight bump, slip, and then like getting into the mid-range area. And that's fine. Like he's good at that. But I don't think he's a great screener in terms of making contact. Sabonis is definitely a great screener that I think would help develop the guards that you've drafted in Trey Johnson, whatever you think of Bub Carrington,
even Keyshawn.
Whoever they're able to get this year. Keyshawn, he would really help as well. I wonder if he could be basically a developmental big for them as like a helpful player is kind of my pitch on this.
Well, and that's a team where who's the primary initiator of offense, right? Like you can't easily answer that question, at least for the rest of this year. And even if they get Darren Peterson, do you want to like throw everything at him or, okay, I'm a little interested here. Like you've piqued my interest a little bit in terms of a developmental guy, a proof of concept guy, help your young guys develop, especially if you're not, to me, it almost would have to end up being like Sacramento really doesn't get a return that they love. And it's just cap relief, right? Like that's all Sacramento would get. If I'm Washington, that's all I'm giving them in return is cap relief because I don't really want to, trade a pick for this. But if I'll take on the longer term money, if that means Sacramento can then, get expiring money. So
final connection here. Do you know who played a role in drafting Domantas Sabonis to the Oklahoma City Thunder back when he got drafted? Will Dawkins. Who is their GM now currently. He was on the scouting staff there in Oklahoma City when he got drafted. I'm not sitting here saying that I think that is reason to believe this or anything, but it wouldn't surprise me if Will Dawkins was like, hey, this is an interesting player that could help us develop. Yeah. That's the team that makes the most sense to me for Sabonis. I'm not even sitting here saying that they should accelerate their rebuild like this. I don't even know that I love it, but if they could do it for cheap, I think that he would help their young guys develop is what I would say. I wouldn't give up like anything other than like heavily protected first round pick for him to do it. But if the Kings were just like, we want to get off the money and we want expiring dollars coming in and just to totally reset the roster, I would probably do that if I was Washington.
Yeah, I think the only thing if I'm Washington is if I think I can be a player in, the money's so low. I don't even know that his contract really kills your cap space that much.
It's not terrible in the new money environment. Look, he's overpaid, I think.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I was just thinking like my biggest negative that I was thinking is, does this take away you from being a cap space team that could either play in free agency or acquire a player via trade through the cap space? Does it mess up your books that are about to be very, very, very clean after you get Middleton and McCollum off them? That I think might be, I'd want to play that out over the next few years just to make sure if I was going to add that money to the books.
Yeah. And again, I don't know that I would do it unless the price was like exceptionally low. It's kind of what I would say. Like if it was like a protected first in the expirings and like I found a way to get another player and like be able to move the other player for like other draft capital. You know what I mean? So, or like you could do, like it could be Middleton and like Bagley or something for Sabonis probably is like fairly reasonable money wise. It wouldn't even have to be Middleton. I could check that real quick, just like looking at it. But no, Bagley's back on a low deal. I keep forgetting that he's back on a minimum. It could be like I think Branham would get you pretty close, honestly. Like Middleton and Branham for Sabonis would get you close on the money. Okay. I mean, anybody else on this Kings roster that like, I mean, Levine is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't think anybody's going to do it until next year, like until the summer when he's like in expiring and you have 1 year of it.
Yeah. I think the only way he ends up somewhere is if there's just an injury and a team just absolutely feels like they can go for it, but they need that level of scoring. And again, talk about threading the needle. That's really things hitting just right, that a team would have an injury like that or a hole on their roster like that, and the cap flexibility to bring in that level of number.
Yeah, for a second year is quite hard to me. The second year piece of it is very, very difficult to me. I mean, like the Heat, maybe if they felt like they weren't keeping Norman Powell or Tyler Hero, but like if I was them, I'd probably want to try and fry, a bigger fish and, get somebody else there. Orlando made its move with Bane. Like, I don't think Minnesota makes a ton of sense. I don't think, I mean, like maybe Portland if they're willing to do Drew, but like, I like what Portland has going right now. I wouldn't do that. Yeah. Like the Levine deal is so large that it's a little bit difficult to do unless it's an expiring in the off season, I think.
Yeah. Yep. That one's going to be tough.
Because like even Milwaukee right now can't do it. Like he's a team, like Milwaukee is a team that would, he would help on, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like unless Milwaukee at the deadline, or unless Sacramento, I'm sorry, was just willing to break him into like smaller pieces, like the Kuzma and Portis deals, thinking that they could move those more easily than Levine. It's hard to even come up with a contract with like a deal structure that works for the Bucks.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I don't really see it, to be honest with you, with Milwaukee even. So, okay. Look, I think that the lesson with all of this is that it's just going to be really hard for the Kings, I think, to get off of this roster because they've taken back a lot of guys that are on that like aren't quite on expirings. Even DeRozan's 10 million next summer. Like teams aren't going to be wildly enthused about taking that back.
Yeah.
So like, is there any way that they could like ease Boston's tax bill somehow? Like, could you do Simons for, man, like DeRozan doesn't ease their money enough this year to do that. So like, could you do, yeah, no, like, I don't think you can. So yeah, that doesn't really even work. So no, like, I think it's going to be really hard for them to move a lot of these guys.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the tough part whenever you go into a rebuild. I experienced it with Detroit whenever they went full fledged and your quote unquote best players are leaving town and you're not bringing in anything exciting in terms of draft capital or young players. I think Sacramento will end up with a little bit better than that over the course of all of this, even if it's just from Sabonis. But I don't think it's not going to be a crazy haul. It's not going to be the Utah Jazz haul whenever they had their reset, if that is what Sacramento decides to do.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they go about it. Very, very interested. But like, I feel for Kings fans because I loved this team a couple years ago when they were lighting the beam and like having an absolute blast.
Yeah.
Between Fox and Sabonis and all of the fun that seemed to be being had. But they just have like no defensive infrastructure. Their offensive execution is really poor. Like Bryce, right now, they have Zach LaVine shooting 52, 42, 87. They have Malik Monk shooting 51, 48, 88. They have DeMar DeRozan shooting 49, 40, 85. They have Sabonis shooting 50% from the field. And right now, they are currently 25th in offensive rating.
Yeah.
League wide. Because they don't take enough threes, first and foremost. Like the scheme is a whole other issue. Like I don't like, you have all these guys around with LaVine and Malik Monk and like semi-real shooters. Like the guy that's taking the second most threes on their team this year. Do you know who it is?
The guy that's taking the second most threes?
Yes.
Malik?
It's Russell Westbrook.
But he's actually shooting well, right? He's
shooting 40% from three. Yeah. And they're still 25th in offensive rating because their scheme just like doesn't make any sense because they have all these guys who are shooting well from three and they're not shooting threes.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, it's and look, I want to acknowledge this factor too with the Kings. They have played the hardest schedule in the league. Like that is just the reality of their situation. They had to play on the road at Phoenix to start the year. And then they had the Lakers. They were on the road for Thunder, a smoking hot Bulls team, on the road for the Bucks, on the road for the Nuggets, then home against the Warriors, Thunder, Timberwolves, Nuggets, Hawks. And now they're on the road again for Timberwolves, Spurs, Thunder, Grizzlies, Nuggets. Like they're probably going, and then they have Minnesota next. So through their first 18 games, if they're 4-14, that would not blow my mind.
Yeah.
Like they might really start out tough because their schedule is insane to start the year.
Yeah. It just, yeah, that next stretch of 3 games is not a lot of fun.
Yeah. Like Edie might be back for the Grizzlies by that point, and then you get the Nuggets next night
and the
2
Wolves
nights later. Then you get the Wolves again. And then like, oh, by the way, it does ease up a little bit in December, but this is the start of their December 4-game road stretch. Rockets, Heat, Pacers, Blazers. Then they have the Blazers again, then the Rockets, then the Pistons, then the Mavericks, it eases up. But then the Lakers on the 28th. Like, I don't think this is the worst team in the league. I want to be very clear about that. If they end up having the worst record in the league at some point, just because of the schedule, not because of anything else, that's not going to blow my mind.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to make some changes, I think. And given where they are, let's maybe not say, talk about the King Show getting back at some point here soon, given the schedule.
Right.
Okay. Let's go to the Clippers real quick. I want to talk about the Clippers. So, the Clippers right now, I think, would be the most disappointing team in the league. Do you think that's fair? They're 3-8. Like they're very bad.
Them or Orlando, yeah.
Yeah, like Orlando Clippers is 6-6.
Yeah. So like
Clippers kind of pulled it back.
No. Clippers more. Yes.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
And the big thing for me is like their defensive rating is 26th in the league. And they look slow.
Bryce. You know what? One of my most common notes written in is Derrick Jones looks so athletic on this team. Every single game I watch, I make a note about how Derrick Jones Jr.'s level of athleticism and juice is just different than everybody else on the roster. And he truly is a great athlete, but he shouldn't stand out that much on this roster. And I feel like he does every time I watch a Clippers game.
Yeah. So, according to Synergy, they are currently third worst in the league in terms of points per possession allowed in transition. I will say that like they do at least like semi-limit transition. Like teams are only getting out in transition on 17% of their possessions, which is not catastrophic, but not great, obviously. But part of that is that they're playing at like a glacial pace. They're 30th in the league in pace. So essentially like they're giving up a ton of free points every time that a team gets out in transition, and they're not, they're losing the transition battle. It feels like every single night because they just feel way less athletic than everybody else in the league. I want to acknowledge that Kawhi has played 6 games, right? Like I believe that they're 3-3 in the games where Kawhi has played, and they have lost every game that he has not played. But I don't know, man, this little losing run where like, lose to 1 by Miami, lose to by 19 to OKC, lose the back-to-back games against Phoenix by double digits, and then they lose to Atlanta by 3, and then last night against Denver, man. I mean, we should talk about Jokic real quick, but like last night against Denver, it was rough. It was it was pretty ugly in the third quarter.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a team like Chris Paul's giving not much of anything. Bogdan has only played 5 games and his numbers don't look great. And Bradley Beal is now out for the year as well. So a team that had a little bit of depth, but we knew was older and that depth could be depleted very quickly. That has happened very quickly. And I'm going to catch an L here thinking that the Bradley Beal situation with the Norm Powell and all of that was a good move. And right now it does not look that way. Collins has been good. He's been fine for them, but they're going to end up getting 6 total games from Bradley Beal. And it wasn't that great in those 6 games. And then some of these other guys just haven't come through as well. Even Batum, who's played in 11 games, is down at 3 points. They look like a team that needs an injection of youth and energy and athleticism and all of that. And I suppose that makes sense for a team that's the oldest in the NBA.
Like the level of usage that James Harden has to carry every single night on this team is kind of staggering. Like it just is. When he is not on the court, like this team is like borderline catastrophic on offense. Like when he's not on the court, they have a 94 offensive rating this year. When he's on the court, they have a 121 offensive rating. Like he's pretty good when he's on the court, but you have a 94 offensive rating when he's off the court. And like the Beal thing, I do feel somewhat for Bradley Beal. Like he wasn't playing well, to be clear, but like he's hurt. And frankly, he looked hurt. Is the reality.
Sure, fair.
Like when he was trying to guard in that second Phoenix game, it just felt like he couldn't get around any actions, was the reality. He couldn't move. Just straight up couldn't move. And they were attacking him pretty relentlessly. And then like he smoked like a layup in the like first play of the game, or like first transition possession for them in the game. And I was like, oh my God, this just like doesn't feel it. As soon as it was announced that he's going to miss the rest of the year with a hip injury, I was like, oh yeah, like this tracks actually a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, that in fairness to him, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So look, I don't know what to do with them right now. Like they don't have many assets is part of the problem. And they have not really hit on draft picks. They don't have like a lot of young guys that are interesting to teams. I think they need a roster shakeup like pretty clearly. This team also is going through like everything with the Ty Lue stuff, with the Kawhi stuff, obviously is like a factor that's kind of, stewing in the background, I'm sure, for them. I don't know what to do with this group right now. And I feel for Clippers fans as they're going through, strife on multiple fronts right now, it feels like. But this team has gotten, it seems like they have gotten old in a hurry. And I don't know how you felt about Brook Lopez, but Brook Lopez looks like slow. And we mentioned that last year, where like it really started to fall off in terms of like him being able to move at all, really.
Yep.
And I liked the signing in the offseason, like hand up. I was wrong. Like I thought that it would be fine. But it hasn't worked out yet to me. Yeah, I mean, Derek Jones looks like he's playing in fast forward whenever he's out on the court on this group.
The thing with the roster is if you just look at like the cap sheet, it looks like it's made for, I mean, I guess they can get to it this offseason, but to me, it looked like they thought maybe a 2-year run here. Some of those guys do have club options, but it was, okay, we know we're old. They don't have money tied up long-term. They have nobody past 2 years other than first-round pick Niederhauser, Cam Christie, and then
Zubats as well.
Zubats, who's on a good contract. Yeah. Like that's a great contract to have in 27, 28. But it's like, okay, if it's not looking good this year, it's definitely not going to look good next year. And so what do you do with all of those? Like, do you decline all these club options and find something else to do with Kawhi and James Harden, who has a player option? John Collins is a unrestricted free agent. I just, even Bradley Beal has a player option for next year. It's on a low number. I don't know what they do, but I don't know how you can sit here and see how this has started and then think like, yeah, we want to sign up for this the rest of this season and again next season. So they're in a tough spot with how they move forward.
I mean, they can pretty clearly get to real cap space if they want it this year because the Harden deal is only guaranteed for $13 million.
Okay. I guess I had missed that one. Sure.
Yeah, and the Bogdanovich, Brooke Lopez, Nick Batum deals, like you mentioned earlier, they're all team options. Obviously, I would guess Beal's going to exercise the player option there at $5 million. But yeah, like they can have basically what, like 82, 92, let's call it 100 on the books for a cap environment that's expected to be 166 next summer. But again, like if you lose James Harden, like James Harden's keeping them afloat right now. Like that's a huge deal to be dumping James Harden from this team. Like you need to go get Austin Reeves basically.
Yeah.
If that's your idea of, we're going to move on from Harden and move into a new era. The only guy that's like the two guys that'd be available, I guess, would be Austin Reeves and Trae Young if you wanted to make that move. But I mean, that's really all that you can do at that point. You have to go get your primary initiator. And, look, I think the Jones deal could be easily moved. $10 million for a good defensive player. Like that's fine. That'd be easily moved. Chris Dunn, $5.5 million for a really good defensive player. That's easily moved. No problems asked. Chris Dunn is still really useful to me. He's shooting 52, 58, 60 this year and providing, the only semblance of defense it feels like on a night-to-night basis, along with Derek Jones. So, yeah, man, like it's tricky. This team is very disappointing, though.
Yeah.
And they don't really guard. And that's been the thing that they've fallen back on the last couple of years. Like they had the third best defensive rating in the league last year. They were 17th in 2024 and they were 18th in 2023. But like the whole run last year was predicated upon defense. Like they were a really good defensive team last year. And this year, like they just have nothing on that end.
Yeah, this was a team I loved after the offseason. And then as things played out, I kind of shifted and I even ended up taking their under, even though I still had them as a top 6 team in the East. I didn't think it was going to end up being this bad, though, at least based off what, where we're at right now.
Yeah. Where was I? I had the over on the Clippers because I'm a big dumb idiot, but what can we do?
Hey, listen, I have the under on the Spurs. I also am pretty sure I drafted the Pacers in our whatever draft, and they are single-handedly going to destroy my chance at winning that.
Yeah, everyone thought you won that immediately, and I feel good about where I'm sitting right now on that one.
Yeah.
I do need Toronto to you need Toronto to kind of figure things out.
Yeah, no, mine sucks. I'm not in a good spot.
I feel okay on where I'm at on that one, given that Oklahoma City is 12-1 right now. Okay. The last thing I want to talk about here before we get out, I want to talk about Reed Sheppard.
Yeah.
Because when we did our preseason thing and when we talked after game 1, when he really struggled in game 1, right? The thing I said was, look, the Rockets have like a 10-game window here where they can really get Reed some runway because the schedule is not wild. It's Oklahoma City, which was crazy, and then the Pistons, really good team, but then Brooklyn, Toronto, Boston, Dallas, Memphis, San Antonio, which they lost, and then Milwaukee and Washington. So teams where he could really get a chance to get his feet up under him and play. And Bryce, wouldn't you know it? Reed Sheppard has gotten his feet under him and looks pretty damn good right now. He looks pretty good. Over the last 4 games, Reed Sheppard is averaging 16 points, 3 assists, 1 rebound, 2.3 steals, 0.5 blocks versus 1.5 turnovers, shooting 66-60. Still hasn't made a free throw in that time, which is bizarre. If you even extend it out a little bit to just removing the first 2 games of the year against Oklahoma City and Detroit, 13 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.3 steals, 0.4 blocks, 1.3 turnovers, shooting 56, 51, 60. Reed has figured it out. Like Reed looks pretty good to me right now. And I kind of want to talk through what I'm seeing and how it looks like he's kind of sorted through some of the issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's figured out where to find his shots and he's knocking them down. Like, we know he's a big time shot maker. You know, just looking at some of the synergy numbers, he's perfect in transition from the 3-point line. So like, that's a great spot for him to get shots. Even in 2-pointers, he's shooting a good percentage in transition, spot ups, obviously. And I think the thing that stood out to me the most, so like, he's 60% on unguarded catch and shoot threes, 15 of 25. The guarded number is not as good. But I think the number that stands out, and I think this pops with the eye test or whatever also, he's 10 of 17 on dribble threes, and he's 7 of 16 on dribble twos. He has really been able to figure out and find his jumper off the bounce. And I'm always impressed with it, with especially the mid-range jumper, that he's able to get to his spot. He must hit it very aggressively. He has good elevation on the jumper. We know he's a good athlete.
Yep.
And he looks good. Like, it looks sustainable in terms of his ability to get to that spot, stop, elevate, get good elevation, and knock down that shot. So, I mean, at least as a 2-level scorer, I don't know, eventually you have to leverage that stuff getting all the way to the rim or whatever. But in terms of a 2-level scorer, it seems like he's figured that stuff out, figured out where to get his shots and how to get to his spots.
Yeah, you know, what I would say is that I think that he looks way more comfortable driving to the rim, to be honest. Like, I think that he looks like he's actually trying to get to the basket. And like, even if it's to not finish at the rim, if it's to kick out, like, he looks a lot more comfortable. Like in the Washington game, he had this drive where like it was 2 really sick, like inside out. He had like an inside out hesitation and then like a shoulder hezi, and then just drove and blew by his guy. And then threw this like absolutely nasty lefty kick out to the top from underneath the rim to Tari Eason. And like, he'll still dribble himself into trouble sometimes too, where like he had this one where he kind of like drove on the left side, tried to, you know, hit a hammer pass to the corner and jumped and like kind of got himself in midair a little bit and didn't know where to go with it. I think it was Trey Johnson that turned it over and ended up getting the ball. But he looks more comfortable and confident. Like, he's settled into his role in the NBA in a really consistent way. And the other thing that I will say is that they have really figured out how to weaponize him off of relocations and off of just like very simple pitchback stuff with him and Şengün or him and KD. Like, those two guys have really started to look for him whenever he's trailing or whenever they're playing in like a dribble handoff where they're handing it off. And then Reed will just like dart. You know what I mean? Like, he will dart somewhere to like the opposite wing, or he'll dart, you know, right to the top of the key if it was a side dribble handoff. And as soon as he darts, if they feel like he's open, they will hit him immediately and get him a wide open shot if they feel like that defender has sagged off of him just even the slightest amount. And then you brought up the mid-range stuff, like the hesitation stuff into mid-range. Like, he had one in the Bucks game where it was like, oh wow, like he just drilled one like right over the top of Miles Turner, and it was like, oh my god, like this is pretty impressive to me. And they're using him like as a cutter sometimes in the Washington game. Like, he understood he was coming off of what I thought was going to be like kind of a like dribble handoff where it could have been like getting him into like a middle Chicago zoom action, and he just like dove straight to the rim because he felt like his man was like way overplaying that to try and stop him from getting to the three. His IQ is just off the charts too on this stuff. So offensively, man, he looks really good. Like, I think he looks really good, especially given that he's only played 22 minutes a night and he's averaging 13 points if you remove those first 2 games of the year. He is a lethal offensive player every time he's on the court right now, it feels like to me. Now, defensively, I think people are making a lot of the steal numbers and the block numbers and like the hand-eye coordination. And I think he's gotten better defensively throughout the year. There are still teams that attack him for sure. Like Washington couldn't really attack him all that much in the game last night or 2 nights ago. I can't remember. But there are teams that will try to catch him. Like it felt like even Milwaukee was like trying to catch him from time to time. But I'll tell you this, man, like they don't win the Milwaukee game without him, in my opinion. Like the other games, like they probably win without him on some level, right? Because like he, it was a 15-point game against Memphis. It was a blowout against Boston. It was, a game against San Antonio where I thought he kept them like really in the game, honestly, for stretches. But he's becoming an integral piece of this team in a really big way, to where I'm wondering if he could actually be useful, if he can really continue to hold up on defense in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, I mean, in that Houston game, he had his imprint all over a big time second quarter run. There was another second quarter in the game against Milwaukee where his shot making was huge. I thought the Milwaukee game was the blueprint. Like I didn't know we were going to talk about Reed tonight, but when I watched that game, literally my last note is this game is the blueprint for his success. He had multiple defensive disruptions. I do think like teams are going to attack him, like especially in the playoffs. We'll see if they can figure that out. He can figure that out. One thing I do want to give him some credit on though is he will just go pass block guys off the ball. I even saw him do it to Wembanyama. He got switched on to Wembanyama. Yeah. He's just like, I'm not going to let you just walk me to a spot. I'm going to turn and pass block you and try to just move you out of the way. And now if Wembanyama wants to fight back, he's going to get to a spot and whatever. But sometimes guys will give up, quote unquote, that possession if Sheppard will just get into him. I think he does it on defensive rebounds and stuff like that's how you survive as a small guard, is finding little things like that to, again, just survive the possession. Can I survive this possession by just turning and not letting him physically work me over just because he's bigger than me, stronger than me, whatever? Because then if you can do that, then all of this offensive stuff that you and I have been talking about really becomes of value.
Reed Sheppard, even including those first 2 games, 12 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.5 turnovers, 49, 50, 57 so far. And again, like the defense to me is like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's like the best defender in the world or anything like that, but the handiness, like he had one like kind of crazy havoc rotation, I felt like against CJ McCollum, where it was like pretty useful, where he like kind of got behind him and got a contest. Yeah, I mean, look, they are worse when he's on the court. That is just like a fact of the matter. But, he's playing with backups too. So, if you look at the numbers when it's, him, KD, and Şengün, like with all 3 of them on the court, they've only played 46 minutes together, but they have a 130 offensive rating right now when all 3 of those guys are on the court together. So I'm excited about Reed. And I think that we're kind of back at the point where we're seeing the vision of what he was at Kentucky. He looks a lot more settled in and comfortable and confident than he has at any point in his career. And we're starting to get back to that like hesitation, confident, like honestly, I think he looks a little bit bursty than at any point I've seen from him before too. So yeah, that's, if I was a Rockets fan, I would be very enthusiastic about Reed right now. I would be very, very excited about him.
I think they've found the right role for him. I don't think it's in the starting lineup yet. I think what he's doing right now is really good. And I think they found, kind of his offensive flow and just the general role in terms of his minutes and all of that. I like it so far.
And what I'm interested in is if he continues to earn more minutes now.
Sure.
And I think there's a chance he does, for what it's worth. Like, obviously he's playing way more minutes the last 3 games. It wouldn't stun me if we look up and he's, averaging 25, 26 minutes a game, at some point through the back half of the year, just because he's kind of really figured it out on offense. Okay, Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yeah, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter, on Blue Sky, Motor City Hoops Substack. If your favorite team plays the Pistons, it's free to subscribe over there. Game Theory Substack, where, as Sam mentioned, I had a Michael Brown Jr. video, and we'll continue to do NBA draft, maybe some NBA whenever I get a chance. The Pistons Pulse podcast, where we give Dennis Jenkins all of the love he deserves after his 2-game performance earlier this week. And then, of course, the Game Theory podcast with Sam Vecenie. I'll let him gush over Danis real fast.
We just didn't have enough time to get to Danis Jenkins. Maybe that's for the Sunday show.
Yeah.
You know, we have only a couple days until the Sunday show. We might let Bryce go nuts on Danis Jenkins over that time. But look, I can guarantee you one of the takeaways I have on the Sunday show is going to be about Nikola Jokic breaking basketball.
Yeah.
Because Nikola Jokic is literally breaking basketball right now. So I'm very excited to talk about that. Go to the Game Theory Substack, Game Theory, samv.substack.com. You know, really, really a lot of work going up there from Bryce and I. A lot of tape breakdowns that we think you guys will enjoy viewing and watching and seeing. So go over there. Shout out to the sponsors, MIZZEN in Maine and MOMENTOUS. And go to The Athletic. Keep me employed over there. I will have rookie rankings today when this goes live. So you will be able to read those. Wrote a lot about Con Knipple, wrote a lot about Cedric Howard, wrote a lot about Cooper Flagg's role within the Dallas offense. So keep it locked there. Until next time, we'll talk soon. Bye.